I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello everyone, welcome to the Lethal Venom Podcast. This is the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. Today I'm joined by Mr. Max Shippee. Max grew up in rural Maine and knows the woods very well. His own journey took him to Hollywood, California, by way of Oklahoma, Nevada, Texas, DC, and has even gone internationally to Bali and Indonesia. For the last 20 years, he has been a busy actor, a gym owner, a husband, as well as a father. Along the way, he's had some stories brewing in that silver-headed head of his. He thought it was best to have them written down. You can find his spontaneous science fiction installments on Reddit, and now with his newly released Moonshine series, with his first book being Path of the Raven. So I would like to give a huge welcome to Max. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure. Thanks for having me on short notice. I'm looking forward to this. No, it should be super fun.
So if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and just your journey to being who you are today.
Sure. Like you just read about, I grew up in New England in the north woods of Maine, super small town. Funny enough, lumbering and potato farming was the industry back then. I'm a little bit older, so I'm old enough that we used to get in the fall. We used to get 2 weeks off for potato harvest for farming in the town that I was in. So we'd actually start school early August and then get 2 weeks off in September, and the whole town would go pick potatoes, which was kind of it doesn't happen so much anymore. They have more, they have other kind of labor that does that, but for us, it was the whole town. And then from there, made my way to Oklahoma, got a degree in music, and then bounced around a little bit. Went to DC for a little bit, performed there. Went to Vegas, performed there for a while. Then had a strange connection to Indonesia, so I worked at a scuba diving resort out there. And this whole time, I found that I was kind of collecting and observing stories in my head, my own story number one, and other people's number two. And then I ended up, to make a long story short, I met my wife. She already lives in Los Angeles, so I moved out here, and I've had pretty good success over the past 20 years or so living in Los Angeles with commercials. Did a lot of commercials. I was on a soap opera for a little while, so I got to be a bad guy, a villain, which was super fun. And then when COVID hit, I didn't have a creative outlet anymore, so I decided to start writing, and that's where this book came from. So now I have a book one under my belt and working on the second one, and hopefully there'll be a few more that follow the same hero's journey that I've started with this book. So
So you've done a lot of different career paths. You went from music and have been an actor and now a
mhm.
writer. How did you expect to have any of those careers growing up? Was it always something that you wanted to do?
You know what's funny is I started out, my first major in college was chemical engineering. So I thought I was going to be some kind of science-based engineer guy to start with, and then it turns out that in my second semester, I spent a lot more time in the theater than I did in the chem lab, and just realized that my, you know, these days my wife tells a joke that not a joke, but she made the observation of me. She said, Max, not everyone sees a stage and wants to get on it. Some people just see a stage and like, okay, let me watch the show. I see a stage and I'm like, let me get up there. So with that, I discovered that I really like performing. My mom was a dance teacher, so it kind of goes along with that. And yeah, I didn't necessarily. I At some point in my life, I saw myself on Broadway, and then at another point in my life, I saw myself in Hollywood, and I kind of made that happen. I mean, I'm no Tom Cruise, but I made a really good living at that for a long time. And then, like many people who are creative, I think you're just looking often for a creative outlet that provides some kind of satisfaction. And the fact that you can self-publish books now makes it really easy, just like you're doing a podcast. Like you don't need anybody to tell you that you can't do it. You can just go do it and put it out there and it's done. Where acting is not like that. Acting is very much you're trying out constantly for a part to be a part of someone else's thing, unless you happen to write and direct something yourself. So I saw writing as something that I could just literally go from beginning to end and have a finished product and not have to ask anybody's permission. So yeah, I didn't necessarily see myself becoming a writer, although I always was in storytelling in some way, shape, or form, I would say. If that's doing music, that's storytelling, acting, that's storytelling, even dance is storytelling if done well. So, I think I've been circling that idea for quite some time, and finally getting some words to a page was wonderfully, wonderfully fulfilling.
So tell me a little bit more about your acting career. What was the moment where you decided that you wanted to pursue acting for a little bit?
Sure. Uh, Acting was it's funny. Sometimes things won't leave you alone, in that I always made time for an audition. I was always excited to get a part. Even from that first year of college when I should have been in the chem lab and I got a part in the musical, I was far more happy going to rehearsal than I was heading to the chemistry lab. I always thought it was more fun. So I think that just followed me. And even being in Los Angeles, where you have to drive an hour to an audition, I mean, that's different now because we do virtual auditions, but just a few short years ago, it would take 3 hours to get a 5-minute audition done because you had to drive up to LA and drive back in traffic and fight it all. So, but there's something about that that's wonderfully fulfilling, to be a part of the story in that way. So, yeah, it was just kind of always in there. Although, yeah, I guess that's the best way to describe it.
So, you mentioned that you had worked on a soap opera. What soap
Sure.
opera did you work on?
Sure. I was on The Young and the Restless, and that was almost 10 years ago now. It was 2016, 17, I believe. So Young and the Restless has been around for a long time. It's got to be coming up on 50 years now. Started in the 70s. So there was some people on there that had been on for a very, very, very long time. And I got to be a part of a really fun villain arc where I was trying to take money from the matriarch of the family and seduce her. And in the end, of course, when I tried to kill her, I kill myself instead. So it was very, very tragic at the end. And I always had a fantasy of my twin coming back and making more trouble, but that hasn't happened yet. But I was on there for a good 60 episodes. So it was a good stretch there. And you want to talk about acting and working and doing two things, which is like a craft but telling a story at the same time. Like the stories that are in soap operas, you don't think of it this way, but those stories have a history literally of 40 years. There are a few stories that are literally in everyone's living room day after day after day after day. It never, ever stops. It just goes and goes and goes. So it's interesting that what we see soap operas is like, they're just soaps, but they work so hard. They shoot so many pages every day. They're shooting 6 episodes every 4 days, which means they're shooting on average 60, 70 pages a day. They're just flying. And the fact that they can get any storytelling out at all, never mind wonderfully compelling stories too, with a lot of different plot lines is wonderful. But it was super, super, super fun to be on the soap. For sure, I learned how to memorize lines quickly. I have some picture windows in my house, and I would post the script up on these windows. And every time I walk by throughout the day, I'm just running lines over and over and over. The most pages that I had for one week was about 70 pages. And the interesting thing is that while you're on set doing lines, you're memorizing for next week. So you're never really done. You're always just go, go, go. I was fortunate that I would work 3-4 weeks and then I would go away on a trip on the show. So I'd be gone for a couple of weeks and I'd come back. but yeah, my busiest week, I had about 70 pages that I had to fit in my head and say without error because things move really fast on a soap. They they're looking for one, two, maybe three takes, and then they're moving on to the next thing. So you really have to be on the ball and get the words right. And some of the words might seem funny, but they're reviewing history constantly. They're setting things up for 2 weeks from now. They're doing a lot of stuff. So a lot of times you're like, why no one talks like this? It's like, yeah, but we have to get this certain information out to set up 5 scenes from now. So um, but yeah, that was a wonderfully fun time. I got to go to some soap con. It's not like a soap con, but soap opera, convention type things, and sign autographs, and got a bunch of new followers on my social media. And the fans of those shows are just wonderful. Yeah,
There's a lot of diehard soap opera fans out there.
yeah, there are.
I have to give you props for that because for I've always told people if I ever did acting career or not anything, I want to do animated because you didn't have to memorize any lines. You
Yeah.
can just read from the paper.
Yep.
You can just
Yep.
read into a mic. I mean, that this be the simplest thing for me. I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine having to memorize 70 pages of
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
And as well as you're trying to remember your lines for this episode, but you're also remembering lines for next episode. I'd get confused.
Oh
They'd get
yeah.
mashed up. I have to give you props for that because that that's a lot that I can't imagine the
It's a
amount of
lot.
work
You can
for
imagine
that.
too that like not only are you doing 70 pages this week, but they usually give your stuff like maybe a week ahead. So it's not like I had a month to memorize that. You have about a week to get it all in. And like you said, like one day you're memorizing this, and you got to say that, but you got to dump it out of your head the next day because you're trying to get onto, you're always about 7 days ahead of where you need to be, hoping you're
Oh,
you're on it. So yeah, but yeah, you're right. Anime would be way more fun because you're like, oh, I just sit here with a microphone and
yeah.
read it. That's way better. Don't have to worry about where my light is. Don't have to worry about where the camera is. Don't have to worry about do I take a sip of water here or there? None of that. You just get to have the fun part of saying the words. And anime is super fun. My kids are into that, as am I. Some of the shows that are really we just watched. What is it? It's going to date this podcast, but the Demon Hunter one, the Demon Hunter K-pop Demon Hunters, that's out right now.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
I've not seen it, but I've heard some of the soundtrack
music,
for it, and
it's
it's
all
really
over.
good. It's
It's
really good.
fun.
I mean, I
It's
saw
super fun.
like I think filming this one of their songs went number 1 on the
Yeah, on
Billboard
Spotify and
charts. It
stuff.
was
Yeah,
crazy. It
that
was
was the big
crazy.
thing. People were talking about like these people don't even exist, and they have the number one chart. Like, what's that about? It's like, well, a catchy tune and a fun. Once again, going back to story, catchy tune and a fun story. People are into it. You should check it out. It's fun. It's just a movie, so it's not a series, so you can watch it one night.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I watched it with my kids. It was super fun. Do you have any other favorite anime that you're watching that I should be in tune with? I'm trying to be cool, man. You got to help me out because I'm not part of the young crowd anymore.
Well, I don't really watch anime a lot. I watch
Okay.
now animated stuff. I watch
Okay.
Disney and Pixar and
Okay.
I
Yeah.
watch all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't know, I've tried to get into anime. One of my friends watches it and I just can't get into it. I don't know what it is. It's just too wacky. I
It's some of
remember
it. Go ahead.
I remember I saw watched one of my best friends, she reads a lot of manga books and she's
Oh,
a huge
sure.
anime book reader. And some of the stuff that was in the book, I said, that's smut. I literally said that is porn that you're reading. I said, what is
Yep.
this? I said,
Yep. Yep.
now I was like, and it was graphic. I mean,
Yeah.
for it to be a book that's
With
I couldn't tell
comics
you
in it,
what book
right?
it was. I can't
Right.
tell you what the name of it was. I just remember seeing
It's
a
like, oh,
graphic image and I was like, oh. I
well,
said, there's no way you're reading that.
that's what you're quote reading, huh? I got you, right? It's funny because I'm not. It's funny because we're not like necessarily anime. We're animated, I guess, is the right word. Because, like you said, Pixar, Disney, like Pixar rarely makes a mistake. I like all their stuff. We're
Oh, I do
huge.
too.
We're huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fans. We love that show. We think it's great. It's like it's biblical in our household. It's that we love it that much. Um, and yeah, my son got into what was it, Jujutsu Kaisen or something. A lot of that stuff that's funny to me is that there's so much inner monologuing in the anime. Like when they stop a battle, they're like, well, he's going to use this move, but then I'll counter with this move. And then if he does that, it's like, just get to the fighting, man. Like, why is there so much monologuing? But we like to know what characters are thinking. So I guess I can understand that from a writing perspective as well.
One show my friend showed me pissed me off so much every episode
Oh my
because they
God.
did a lot of build up and then they would stop
Right there.
and then they'd have to be like next week. I said, and I thought it was just like one episode. Every
Episode.
episode, I thought, oh my God,
Are they going to
why
get to
are
it?
you putting it in every episode where I'm having to watch it next week to see what happens? I said, I can't watch this show. This is gonna piss me off. I said, no,
It is.
I can't.
Get to the
And there's
point,
like
man.
I think it was like Dragon Ball Z, and there's like
Ugh.
600 episodes of that. I thought, no, I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it. No.
Yeah. Too much of a commitment. I get you.
I was like, oh my God, you don't have to do it in a cliffhanger every week. I
Every
said,
single time. Yep.
I thought most TV shows don't do that nowadays. I mean, they might do it
No.
for one episode. That's
Right.
maybe a parted episode.
They usually
Not
leave you with a little of something. It's like, hey, watch the next one, but not like frustratingly so, right?
like I said, I thought, and he was like, well, that's how they get you to watch it. And I said, I
Yep.
know, I'm not going to. I'm just going to
Like,
forever
just
be.
because you're trying, I'm not gonna, right?
So
It's so
going
good.
from acting into writing, the pandemic made you become a writer.
Yeah.
Did you always have kind of a specialty in writing, or did writing kind of help kind of find your voice and find a talent that you didn't know you had?
Well, sure. That's a great question. I would say there's some of that. I'm going to go back to story because so much of our lives are story, right? You don't realize it, but you're telling a story about yourself in your head all day long about, am I good on something, bad on something? Do I have to get this thing done? Will I get it done efficiently? There's a lot of that happens, and what we see about the world is a story that we're telling ourselves in our head, whether you want to make that religious or political or someone's out to get me or neuroses or whatever. Like, it's all story. And through acting out other people's stories, through the acting, even through commercials are stories too. They're just short, they're 15 seconds, 30 seconds, but they're still stories. That's why we hang out for the Super Bowl to watch them, right? So I would say that story has always been in there, but the writing piece was new for sure. Yeah, that COVID made me sit for a second, and instead of looking outward to where the stories were, I got a chance to look inward and see where the stories were. And like I said earlier, Stephen King has a great quote. Someone asked him about if he writes down all his story ideas, and he said no, because the good ones won't leave you alone. And I for sure have on any given, which surprises me actually, because I talk to my friends and I'm like, don't you have 6 ideas for movies on any given day? And they always say no. Why do you? And I'm like, yes, easy. Like, I have 6, 10, 12 ideas for movies every single day. So now, of course, it's about a book or about a movie. So one of these ideas, which turned out to be Moonshine, Path to the Raven, my book, it just wouldn't leave me alone. So I started writing. There used to be a thing called National November Writers Month in Oraimo. It's since kind of faded off, but it was a challenge to write 50,000 words in the month of November, and it would help you get started on your book. And they gamified it. There was a website, and you learned badges and stuff. So I used that back in 2020 to write about not 50, but more like 80,000 words and write the first part of this book. So that's where I really started to find that inner voice that you talk about. And the interesting thing about that is that it's almost not your own voice. It's almost like when good story starts coming, it's just coming through you. Like, to say that, yeah, my name's in the book and it's my story, but at the same time, a character will just show up and you'll think, yes, I get this character. I totally see everything about, where did this come from? Did it come from my head? Did it come from some other kind of inspiration? It's hard to tell sometimes. So I would say that just having the introspection, which maybe a lot of people got the opportunity to do during COVID, the introspection of COVID and just not being out in the world, forced that inner voice or that inner listening to finally come through.
So talking about Moonshine, the first book in the series is called
Mm-hmm.
Path of the Raven.
Yes.
What's the ultimate theme of the book, and what do you want hope people take away from it?
Well, I think there's two. That's a great question. I think there's two things. Number one, it should be just a fun read. If you just want to read it on the surface, like I have a friend who's a teacher, she's a middle school teacher, and a lot of those kids read the book and they just thought it was fun. And that's great. Some of the other kids really got to some details and some themes. And if you want to explore those more deeply and you really get it, that's even better. But the theme that I'm hoping to explore through all the books is actually a much, much larger theme. So the main character, Sam, who's 12, he's basically it's a coming of age story. So he's literally coming of age. He's 12 years old and learning to become a man in 1909, 1910. So things were very different back then. And he, through some tragedy, he is left without a father and he makes a journey to discover where he's going to fit in the world. And my hope is that what this will do, in addition to just having a good story, is that we'll get to examine there's a lot of toxic masculinity in the world. And I wanted to write something where we could kind of have the opposite of that. What is a positive masculinity? I was talking with another podcast, and he was talking about how he thought that toxic masculinity was more an absence of masculinity, because a true masculine man is confident, but also empathetic and kind and loving, and has a vision. He's not necessarily an asshole. We have this thing about like that's what a man is. He's a jackass. Like, well, no, that's not the case. Like there is a place for boundaries, and we should all have healthy boundaries. But so my book is an attempt to say, what if we had, through a more magical werewolf, witches, all kinds of fun, like what would happen if the divine masculine, if you will, met up with the divine feminine, and we had something that was truly, truly powerful that we could relate to through a magical way that will get this larger point across. So on the one hand, just some story that I hope is fun to read. On the other hand, just taking on masculine and feminine huge roles in society and thoughts. So, but I don't hit it that hard on the head. It on its surface, it's still done through story as opposed to an essay, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You had mentioned earlier that you don't use a very popular publishing network, but you instead wanted to self-publish.
Sure. Yeah.
Why did you choose that option? And can you explain a little bit about what self-publishing is and kind of what
Sure.
the process of how that works?
Absolutely. So self-publishing for me felt more empowering. You can imagine that as an actor over 20 years, a lot of what I do is audition. And if you book 1 out of 10 auditions, you're doing really, really, really well. So I get in my life in the past 20, 30 years, I've gotten a lot of no's, like no, 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 until you finally get a yes. And depending on how things are going, sometimes you're booking 1 out of 5, sometimes it's 1 out of 20 because you're hot for some reason. You don't know why, but you are. So with publishing, the same thing applies. Once you write a book, you actually submit it to publishers and you get a lot of no's until you get a yes. I don't remember what everybody talks about Harry Potter. I don't remember what the actual numbers were on Harry Potter, but it was something like 30 or 40 or 50 no's before she finally got a yes. And for me, I've experienced so many no's over the past decades that I thought to myself, I don't want to go through publishers and do this. I want to self-publish so I don't have to get another no. I want to get this out there. So I did self-publishing, and self-publishing is very, very, very easy now. Back in the day, you had to actually pay to print books and then sell them out of the back of your car or drive around to bookstores, independent ones, and hope they would sell it. You could give them some books and maybe they would sell it for you. But these days with print on demand, you basically submit your manuscript to Amazon and click a few buttons and make sure the formatting is right, and you can sell your book on Amazon. And it's print on demand. So you don't have to print up and have a garage full of 5,000 books and hope they sell. You can actually just sell one book at a time and it gets printed as they go. So it's a really much more easy process than it used to be. And for me, it felt very empowering because I didn't have to go through a whole series of no's. I could say, here's my book, there's where to buy it. I didn't have to decide on who's going to fit with my publishing. Now, if eventually I have a relationship with a publisher and they can You do tend to sell more books when you're with a publisher because they help you with marketing and a bunch of other things. But for me, it was as important to get the book out there. It was more important to get the book out there than to go through that whole rigmarole of trying to find a match for that. So I skipped over that part. Although it's funny because I have some friends who have been published and they're like, you could have got a publisher easy. I'm like, yeah, but I just didn't want to do it. So part of growing up in the world and learning who you are is deciding where you want to fight your battles. And I'd much rather fight my battles through a plot line than through a publisher, put it that way. So it's relatively easy. You just have to get a certain kind of Amazon account. You fill some quick paperwork. It maybe takes 10, 15 minutes, and then you upload your book. It's relatively easy. Now, getting people to buy it, that's something different. That's the whole marketing part. But actually publishing the book actually is surprisingly easy these days.
How has being a dad and husband affected your storytelling as well as your writing process?
Wow. Being a dad is one of the biggest things that I'm proud of in my life. I have plenty of faults. We all do, but I really think I'm an amazing dad. And often my daughter, who's a senior this year, my second daughter, who's a senior, she keeps saying, how do you make us turn out this way, Dad? How do you make us turn out that we're like this? And, very introspective, which I love about my kids. We feel like we did a good job to not, whatever trauma we had in our generations in our past, we did our best to not pass that forward. And that can be wonderfully challenging for people. But I have a wonderful partner and wife, and we were very conscious of trying to connect with our kids every second we could, even when it came to discipline and things like that. We chose connection over anger as much as possible. So being a dad is a huge part of my life. It's something I'm super proud of. And for sure, it affects the storytelling because when you have kids, you can literally see their stories as they're living them. When a kid gets stuck on something, they want a piece of candy or they miss their toy or something like that. And you're like, wow, you're really stuck. You're still crying. It's been 5 minutes. Like, how can we get you out of this? Do we need to distract you? Do we need to explain? What are the things that we can do to help you get out of that pattern in your head? So being a dad, for sure, when you watch little ones grow up, you have to be a part of all the stuff you forgot you went through. You get to go through again with your kids, and all the heartache, all the wonderful stuff, all the challenges, all the decisions where you're like, why is my kid making this decision that doesn't make sense? And then having to go in and pull that apart with them a little bit. So yeah, being a dad has for sure affected my writing, my storytelling. And this is a young adult novel, so it's written kind of more for my son's age, maybe 13, 14. Uh, and that for sure kind of framed how the book went together. And yeah, kids love story. And we all do, funny enough, because every story is the same. Like, here's the hero, he got the bad guy. Yay! Tell it again. Okay, here's Spider-Man, he got the bad guy. Yay! Tell it again. Okay, here's Captain Kirk, he got the bad guy. Yay! Okay, do it again. Okay, here's Moana, she got the bad guy. Yay! I mean, it's the same. It's the same, only different every single time. And that's what you realize too, is that none of this is brand new. A lot of this is rehashing the same ideas, but we love it. We love those same ideas over and over and over and over. So it's fun to try to tell it the same, only different with moonshine.
I know your kids have looked up to you a lot, going from being an actor, working with music, as well as being a writer. When you're trying to explain like your life to them, like how proud are you?
Oh, it's funny you say that because I don't know if the interesting thing about writing is that they get to see me sit and write. I don't know many kids who get to actually watch their parents at their work. I mean, a lot of people work more from home now than ever before, but at the same time, it's not like you get to watch your dad, I don't know, go do the taxes, or you get to watch your mom go teach her class. You get to, it's very interesting when the kids get to see you go through the whole process, whether that's booking a show and my kids get to come on set and be part of that, be part of the soap opera for a second, or actually seeing me sitting writing a book or talking about the book so many times at dinner about this, about that. My kids, before it was even finished, they felt like they already read it because we had gone through it so many times at the dinner table. So much so that my wife was funny. She's like, okay, I can do this for about an hour, and that's all the brain power I have for the book for you today. It's taking over everything. I'm like, okay, okay. So I would say that they've said it's fun to be part of it in a way, or to watch someone they love go through something new like that.
Mm.
So yeah, and once again, I feel like we have a pretty good relationship with our kids, and I think they're proud of me. They brag about it, like, "Oh yeah, my dad wrote a book. What? You wrote a book? Oh, that's awesome!" You know. So a lot of their friends have copies, and they want to read it. And Mr. Shippee, I want to read your book. It'll be great. I'm like, yeah, let's get you one. Can I? Will you sign it? I'm like, of course I'll sign it. So it's kind of fun to have that because most kids, to use the example I just used, most kids don't want to. Oh, sign my parents' taxes for me. Can you sign these? No, but you sign a book, and it seems very special. So it's fun also that it's something that they can share with their friends, you know. So I think they're proud of me. I think they're having fun with it.
You had mentioned that your wife kind of has helped you in the writing and editing process. What was it
Mm-hmm.
like working with her on writing this book and having her help you edit and write it, work
Sure.
for it?
I'm very fortunate in that I literally every night sleep next to someone who got their degree in English, and who got a master's degree from Stanford. Like I'm literally sleeping next to her every night. So when it came to editing the book, I thought to myself, this is dumb not to try to use her. Like
Mm.
I have a very important piece of the puzzle that's right here. So fortunately, like I just mentioned, she was wonderful enough to help me out with it. And we had to establish some boundaries at some point where she said, this is their time for the book. And then you got to leave me alone and let me have my own brain. But for sure, she made the book deeper for me. The example I like to use is in the second chapter of the book, the oldest witch casts the initial spell of the book. And it's when I wrote it, I'd written it kind of cute and limericky a little bit, had some rhymes to it. And then when we started working on it, she really challenged me in the way that she said, if you want this book to have depth and to have real meaning underneath it, then if this witch is hundreds of years old, like it isn't just a cutesy spell. We got to make this mean something. And it took us 3 to 4 days of working a couple hours every day just for these 7 or 8 stanzas to get them where we wanted them. And so that first stanza now is, since Gilgamesh your song was sung, from silver moon to silver tongue, here a blade to cut the skin. From these words a spell begins. And the cool thing about that is that even if you don't know the story of Gilgamesh, you heard it in school at some point, and most of us are like, that's an old story. Okay, Gilgamesh, your song was sung, silver moon, silver tongue. You already said there was a full moon early in the chapter. What does silver mean? Is that a werewolf thing? That's silver tongue is cutting. Here a blade to cut the skin. You're like, why is she gonna cut him? Is there blood? Like there's all kinds of wonderful questions and references that happen in just that first stanza. And then we go on from there and we try to keep at it to show that there's depth, there's history through this. So what she brought to it was the classic teacher thing where the teacher's always saying, well, what did the author really mean here? What's in between the lines? And as a student, we're often, well, did he really mean that? You're just saying that. Da, da, da. Well, we made a purposeful effort to put things in between the lines that you could read into. And hopefully the story reflects that in a way that is really grounding for people, even though it's a fun story about a 12-year-old. So she was imperative in my editing process. The book, I can confidently say that the book is what it is because I had my wife helping, for sure. For sure. There's no way I could have made this book without her. Or if
I
I could have, it would have been a decade in the making instead of a year. We'll put it that way.
I can relate to that because when I went to college, I majored in journalism,
Oh,
and one of the
great.
huge aspects in journalism is writing. I
Mm,
remember, I remember, I was in science. I had to take a biology class at Auburn,
mm-hmm.
and one of my friends in the class was like, I'm writing this thing. Can you help me and see if the grammar's good on it? And I said, well, that's not what I particularly am
Great at.
capable in. And they're like, well, you're a journalist. I said, I report stuff. I don't necessarily write, but I've had to learn to write over the years. I've had
Right.
to learn that. So at that point, I'd have to like sit there and read and make sure there's no grammar mistakes. And
Hmm.
luckily, people have not asked me to do it a lot, but
Yeah.
I've had to, and I'm like, it's not my specialty, even though it's kind of what I do, kind of
Right.
what I do.
Right.
But um, it's weird that I remember I was in class one day, and our teacher was. I think we had to submit a story or we were pitching an idea of what we wanted to do. And I just remember she flat out said in front of the whole class that she said that you're probably one of the best writers I've ever had. And I was like, okay, but did you have to say it to where everyone's looking at me now? Because she said it in the middle of class. Everyone just turned their heads and looked
Oh
at
my
me. And I
gosh.
thought, this could have waited in like an email or just after class. Everyone started staring at me. And
Oh
I
my
took
gosh.
that. I really appreciated the compliment, but I thought, did you have to announce it to the whole
Right.
class? I thought,
So you're not the person who's going to jump on stage, basically. No, you're like,
well, I've
that's,
gotten better about it over the
oh, that's
years,
good.
but it's like really,
That's good. Yeah, that's funny.
it was still one
It
of
is
those
funny.
moments. But
It's like, ooh, could have told
yeah,
me after class. Yeah.
yeah, it was one of those things. But I I took that to be like a huge compliment because
Heck yeah.
I thought, whoa, I didn't really quite know what to say. Really, it was just a
Yeah.
complete shock. And so I kind of took that to heart, and I actually started writing on my own. I did
Okay.
some poetry writing as well because
Mm-hmm.
that was the easiest thing I could do, honestly, at that point was
Mm-hmm.
poetry. And I think to date I've wrote almost, I would say probably 90 different poems. I think
Oh, that's great.
I've wrote that, and I've also wrote two short stories as well.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote those as well. It was just
What is
something.
you for your short stories? Is it like, are you writing true fiction? Are you writing sci-fi? Are you writing fantasy? Are you writing crime stuff? Like, do you have a favorite to read or to write?
I have to pull up my writing things out because I've wrote some a few different things. I've wrote one thing I wrote was called Pin Drop, and it
Okay.
was a kind of a short story based on this teenage that I didn't really give a name because I thought the name didn't really, but it followed this person that lived in a post-apocalyptic world where
Okay.
there was this kind of disease that would go around that would cause people to turn into these huge different hybrids of stuff.
Okay.
And it was kind of a method of this person trying to survive out in the world where they didn't have to, where they tried their best not to get caught by this entity and they don't get contacted with this virus. And
Yeah, yeah.
it has like a good thing at the end. Like there's a silver lining, and then there was like a story I wrote that was called Life as a Flower. It was
Okay.
it was just like the chronic the chronicles of a flower.
Oh
I
my
mean
gosh,
it
that's fun.
was just like a huge um 180 of like here's a post-apocalyptic
Yeah,
world to
right.
here's just a
And
flower in a
here's a
field.
flower.
It was just
You
like
you probably had to off gas. You had to like detox from the post-apocalyptic world and be like, I need something pretty.
I had this weird idea in mind. I can't explain what it was, and it was just like I think it took me a day or two to write. I wrote it
Hmm.
quickly.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a multi-day thing. Now the pin drop one took me a few days to write, and then
Hmm.
I've got others I'm working on. I just haven't really had a chance to actually sit down and start
Sure.
writing again. But
Sure.
yeah, I've had some ideas. They're kind of sporadic, but it's just I'm like you. The quote that you said earlier, about Stephen King is like when your friend like you mentioned earlier what your friends like you just don't sit around thinking about movie ideas all day,
Right.
and it's like no, but for me it's like I could get like a good idea and I have to write it down and save it for later. So
Yeah.
I it's a thing where some people get this idea like, oh, there's this particular idea. It's kind of like how you hear singers and how artists work at night. Sometimes there's
Yeah.
laying in bed at night and it's 2
Here
a.m.
it
in the
comes.
morning and they think of a lyric or a song title or a melody, they have to record it then or write it
Mm-hmm.
down then in that moment because they'll forget. So
Yep.
people that don't really do a lot of writing and have this
Yeah.
kind of mentality state don't understand, but
Yep.
it's a common thing that happens with people that are writers, whether it's newspaper writers, whether it's songwriters, movie directors, or just like
Mm-hmm.
regular authors.
Yeah.
It's
So
a
many
weird
people talk about
brain.
that. Yeah. Getting ideas in the shower, getting ideas like when you're sleeping or doing dishes, you're like, I figured out where that character goes. Oh my God. When you're not thinking of it at all, something in the back of your head just flips on. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I have books of ideas where not books, but like pages of ideas. And at some point, like I said, I just can't keep, I go back and I look and I'm like, oh, what was that again? And what was that again? And that
Yeah.
was, I mean, I could fill pages of ideas and then go back and not even remember what, half of them meant. But I get that. I get having to get it out though, because so many times you're like, oh, I'll remember that. And 2 days later, you're like, what do I think of in the shower? I totally forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
For your future reference, you've kind of done everything that I would say, dreamed of, even though it wasn't planned. Is there anything that you would still are interested in doing that you are wanting to pursue, or do you think writing might be kind of what you want to pursue for the rest of your life?
The good thing about the writing from a practical level is that it's not a 9 to 5 necessarily. It moves well, just takes a laptop or even a pen, and you can get your quote unquote work done. Once you kind of live the freelance lifestyle, it does feel limiting to go back to some kind of 9 to 5 ish thing. That being said, if Steven Spielberg called me up and said he had a great part in a movie for me, I don't think I'd say no to it. Uh, but yeah, writing tends to be the major focus right now. I'm also involved with my kids' school in a lot of ways, helping them with their productions and a bunch of other stuff. So for the next 4 or 5 years, this is probably where I'm going to sit, and then we'll see what happens after that. Yeah, hopefully by then the books will be banging up, and I'll be making. We'll be having a whole totally different podcast. There'll be millions of views on this, like it usually, like your podcast usually have millions of listens. Sorry.
Who have been some of your biggest inspirations throughout your life, from whether it was from acting journey, from music to writing? Who's inspired you and kept you wanting
Sure.
to
It's
go
funny.
for?
Lately, people who get a lot done are inspiring to me. I'm a longtime follower of Tim Ferriss. He inspires me in strange ways. He seems to always have something up his sleeve and he kind of jumps around to different stuff. He's probably got some wonderfully controlled ADD, which we all have a little bit of, I imagine. Uh, I like him a lot. David Goggins, you know who that is? Super Navy SEAL guy. He has self discipline that's just enviable to all of us. Um, the other guy that I found a lot of inspiration from was Stephen Pressfield. He wrote this great book called the War of Art, not the Art of War, but the War of Art, talking about how anything that we want to do that moves us forward in life has a certain amount of resistance. And if we can get through that resistance, then we can get to our bigger goals. And we all have it. It's something that we battle on a daily basis, uh, but it's there. And that book I go back to often to to make sure that I'm still tuned in. Too many times the resistance comes up and it you let it win, when oftentimes it's the resistance itself which tells you that you're actually on the right track. If there's no little pushback from that, then that comes with everything from working out, staying in shape, to writing, to doing the audition on time, to getting up a little extra early to make sure you have enough time in your day to do all the things. So yeah, Stephen Press was another one who his writings have been inspiring. One of my favorite writers, though, as far as that goes, is Mark Twain. I like him a lot. I read him as a middle school kid a lot. Went back and read him again as an adult, and it's just wonderful, timeless stuff. Have you read uh, James by Percival Everett? Have you read that book yet?
I don't think
No, I
I
haven't seen it.
have.
The the it's a commentary of not a commentary, but it's a retelling of Huckleberry Finn, but through the eyes of the slave Jim. and it's just outstanding. It's a great, great book. The fact that it's a Mark Twain kind of commentary makes it even better. It is a bestseller. It was actually, did it win a Pulitzer this year? I think it might have last year. Percival Everett, I think he's a professor at USC. He's got like 10 or 12 books, and this one is just, it's great. If you want to add it to whatever list you're looking at or listening to or whatever, it's a really, really great one. So just plain good story is always inspiring as well. So if you ask me in any given week, I'm going to say this author, oh my God. And next week it'd be, oh my God, that author. So it's always coming from different sides. And I think that's exactly how it should be.
A lot of people like to pursue acting, music, being a successful pop star, as well as
Mm-hmm.
wanting to do writing as a full-time job and want to pursue that as their career.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for people that want to pursue any of those careers, that don't know where to begin?
Sure. That can be really tricky because I'm going to borrow something from a guy that I follow named Scott Galloway. And, his thing is, and this is true actually, because I had, as a gauge of success, I often used whether I qualified for the Screen Actors Guild insurance. And you have to make a certain minimum every year in order to qualify and get this really good insurance, which was great for when I was having a family. And I worked enough that I made insurance. But generally speaking, 85% of people, 90% don't make enough to make the insurance. And the bottom rung of that isn't crazy high. I think it's 20 or 25,000 per year or something. So, the contention there is like, unless you're getting some really big green lights, like it can be a really, really tough haul. And this day and age, especially with Hollywood changing so much, it can be really, really tricky. That being said, it's never been easier to make your own stuff. Just like I talked about with self-publishing and the fact that you can put your own book out there, you can put your own stuff on YouTube and get noticed, get people to sponsor you, all kinds of stuff. So my advice to anybody who wants to do music, wants to do acting, wants to be something like that is don't look for people to tell you that you can do it. Don't think you have to be the next Spider-Man. You can have a huge following on YouTube, on Spotify, on TikTok, and you can find fulfillment that way. There's only so many Tom Cruises. There's just one. And not all of us are going to be Tom Cruise. And if you're not on that track by the time you're 15 or 16, like, man, when it's really, really, that's when you're getting some really big green lights. So as far as advice for anyone taking on something like that, you got to be patient, number one. Number two, like anything, it probably takes 10 years. It takes, if you want to be a successful anything, start your own business, that it takes about 10 years before you get to where you want to go. So just realize that for all the stories we hear of like, oh, they just found them on an audition or at a cafe, yada, yada. Maybe that happens once in a while. But most everyone else, if you say, oh, you're an overnight success, they'll be like, yeah, fuck you. I've been here for 15, 20 years, hitting the pavement, making connections, working with my friends, working with my enemies to make it happen. There's easier things to do for sure. Are they as fulfilling? It depends on what you want from your job. Some people just want a paycheck from their job and they're very, very happy to be involved in their local theater and their small town. And let me tell you, there is so much fulfillment in doing that, to being that person in your town that puts up the shows or helps with the kids theater or that type of thing. There's nothing wrong with that at all, because like I said, there's only one Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt or Sandra Bullock. And if you're going to be that person, great. You probably already know. If you're not sure, just consider what you're getting from acting. What itch is that scratching? What scratch is that itching? What itch is that scratching? And figure out if there's ways to scratch that in bigger and bigger and bigger ways as you go. And of course, the classic: believe in yourself and be patient. But man, it's a lot a lot of work and a lot of no's before you get to your yeses, for sure.
Well, Max, I've appreciated you so much for coming on and sharing your story with me and sharing this with a lot of my listeners. I think a lot of people on here would are going to feel inspired and that you can go through multiple changes in career paths and it takes a lot of long many years and hard work to be able to find what you want to
Yeah,
take away. So at this time, I'll let you feel free to promote whatever you have going on. Where can people find you on social media as well as if they would are interested in reading your book, they can also check your book out. Just feel free to promote everything you have going
perfect. Thank you
on.
so much. Yeah, my book is Moonshine: Path of the Raven, and all my social, it can be found on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any place fine books are sold. You can even go into your local bookstore and ask for it, and they can pull it up and probably order it for you if you want to support your local bookstore. That's great. As far as all my socials, they are all at Read Moonshine. That's where all my socials are. So that's Instagram, that's TikTok, that's Blue Sky, all the things. I'm still working on Facebook because my account got hacked, so I'm trying to figure that out. I'm on YouTube that way too. If you want to listen to a book, if you're more into listening to it, I love to have people listen. Read Moonshine on YouTube is actually the audiobook is there. It's literally me just sitting and reading the book out loud. So if you want to listen to the book, that's an easy way to do it. And funny enough, I'm also on Twitch a little bit. They back in the day they captured my face for a video game, so I've been playing through a video game called Dead Space for the past few months. I'm now on Dead Space 2. It's a horror game. It is not a kid's thing, but I'm having a lot of fun as a dad becoming a gaming streamer, which is really, really weird to me. But I'm literally in the next half hour going to go on there and do some streaming. So yeah, you can kind of find me all over the place if you're looking for me, which is weird for me, but hey, you try to get every piece that you can. So thank you so much for having me on. Though it's been super, super, super fun.
Well, as always, what I'll do with all my guests, I will put all of his links down in the description box below. I'll put his website, social media platforms, as well as links to his book, so that it's all in one location for you to easily find. For me, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok, Lethal Venom Podcast, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Noah's podcast on there. And also make sure to listen to Lethal Venom wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm everywhere. I'm on all the big major platforms: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora. It's basically everywhere. Just feel free to go check those out. A huge thank you to Max for joining me today and being a guest on here. Again, make sure you go check him out. I appreciate you all so much for listening to this week's episode, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Lethal Venom.